Hello class, I will be presenting my program summary and evaluation plan for my curriculum design presentation by Denise Guerrero. Since I'm a 7th grade teacher, I designed a curriculum for my 7th grade reading course. To give you a better understanding of the course, here are a few details. It is a 45-minute period class. In my current class, I have 28 students, including 12 ESL students, 2 SPED students, and 4 504 students. This is pretty typical of a class structure that teachers have in my district. In order to teach this course, the instructor must be certified by TEA as well as have the ESL supplemental. Before designing the curriculum, I conducted an environmental analysis to get a better sense of how to meet my students' and teachers' needs. Teachers are provided with a 45-minute personal conference and a 45-minute professional learning community conference in which teachers collaborate to prepare lessons and analyze data. The classrooms are set up with 30 desks, which are grouped in 6 groups of 5. The classroom is also equipped with basic technology, including a projector, document reader, 2 computers, and a set of 10 iPads. In the classroom, most students understand English and Spanish. However, some students have a better grasp of the English language than others. Since few students have access to resources outside of the classroom, I provide after-school tutoring twice a week. Aside from the environmental analysis, I also conducted a needs analysis to get a better understanding of what I need to include in my curriculum design. I first began by conducting classroom observations, surveys, and interviews to gain a better insight of students' needs. The interview questions and survey were used to evaluate student attitude towards reading. For example, I asked students what is the most challenging part about reading. Additionally, I surveyed students to see how often they read and their relationship with reading outside of the classroom. To get a better idea of students' lacks, I looked at a variety of assessment tools. First, I began by analyzing the 6th grade reading STAR scores to gauge how developed their reading skills are. For my ESL students in particular, I looked at the TELPUS scores to understand which of the 4 domains of reading, writing, speaking, and listening they struggled with the most. In our district, students are also given common formative assessments about every 2 weeks to measure student progress over content. Finally, students are also given benchmarks, one in the fall semester and another in the spring semester. All these assessments can be used to understand what students are struggling with, so the curriculum can be designed to address those learning gaps. Finally, the last portion of the needs analysis, I evaluated students' wants. I conducted interviews with students to see what interests they had, both in and out of the school, so that I may incorporate these topics into the reading course. I also wanted to consider the wants of other stakeholders, such as my assistant principal and campus ESL teacher, so I interviewed them as well. Key findings from my needs analysis helped me narrow my focus for the curriculum design. First, the TELPUS test revealed that while my ESL students scored pretty well in listening and speaking domains, they still lacked in the reading and writing domains. This was also evident in their 6th grade reading STAR scores. Most ESL students scored low enough to where I would need to reteach foundational skills such as making inferences, main idea, and summary. Data collected from CFAs and benchmarks highlighted that the largest learning gap had to do with developing inferences in expository texts. Finally, the interviews and observations suggested that students would benefit from hands-on engaging activities rather than only practicing with reading passages. Based off my findings, some aspects I wanted to include in my curriculum design to meet my students' needs, lacks, and wants were the following. First off, I wanted to include focus lessons that would build up foundational and reading skills rather than just jumping right into different genres. I also wanted to incorporate collaboration and hands-on activities since most of my students expressed that they enjoyed working with their peers and had tactile learning styles. Although STAR is tested through reading passages, students preferred activities that were much more engaging instead of focusing solely on passages. Finally, vocabulary was also a weakness for students. Many students had trouble in not only understanding genre and academic vocabulary, but decoding it as well. I had 3 basic goals when designing the curriculum for my course, which were: students will increase reading comprehension across genres, including expository text, persuasive text, fiction, drama, and poetry. Students will aim to score proficient 60% on the text's essential knowledge and skills as presented in the 7th grade Reading Star exam, particularly over the following skills: make inferences about text using textual evidence for support, determine the figurative language of phrases and what influence it has within a text, and summarize or paraphrase texts that maintain meaning and logical order. Students will demonstrate their reading comprehension by participating in engaging tactile activities and express what they've learned through reflection. As previously mentioned, students lacked in the foundational skills. So I began by setting up 1-week units that covered basic reading skills, including inferences, main idea, summary, figurative language, and context clues. Following that, I created 2-week genre units so that students may not only explore the genre, but apply different reading skills. Genre units include fiction, poetry, drama, expository, and persuasive texts. For each of these units, I incorporated various activities that would spiral in reading skills. I used thread activities to ensure hotspots were constantly being reinforced as well. Here's an example of what a unit consists of. It includes the week's unit, learning objectives, major activities per day, and homework assignments. Although I included some suggestions for reading options, I wanted to give the teachers the autonomy to make choices that would benefit and interest their students. Here's an example of the materials supplied. Aside from the description of activities, I wanted teachers to have a model to show students what their end product should look like. This was a poetry gallery walk used in the poetry unit for week 9, day 4. I found this project to be incredibly insightful in not only what my students' needs, lacks, and wants were, but in finding ways to address their needs. My favorite aspect of the curriculum design was how well threaded activities work. Using thread activities helps students focus on content rather than directions. Something I would have liked to improve on was how detailed my syllabus turned out. I think I would have liked to incorporate more suggested readings just in case the teacher was new or didn't have much experience in selecting reading text for students. Although I enjoyed this project, I also encountered some challenges. One challenge I face and constantly struggle with is teaching beyond the STAR test. With so much pressure placed on both students and teachers, sometimes it's easy to forget that there is much more to offer in reading than a standardized test. However, as a teacher, I feel like you only have so much control. I also had trouble in making sure that all my lessons were connected to the course's goals and objectives, so they were not just fun activities, but were beneficial to their learning. Finally, the most important thing I learned about myself as a curriculum designer was that putting together creative and purposeful lessons were essential to me. I wanted to be sure that students were still meeting the course's goals while fostering an interest in reading for them. To ensure the course's success, I wanted to evaluate it in a variety of ways. I plan on measuring amount and quality of learning through analyzing how students perform on unit tests and open-ended responses. These 2 forms of assessments will measure how students grasp the current content being taught. Additionally, I will also evaluate how students perform on comprehensive benchmarks. 1 per semester will be given, and TELPUS testing to measure not only the overall mastery of content thus far, but how effectively students are retaining information through spiraling. As an informal assessment of quality of learning, students will self-rate themselves on how well they feel they grasp the material through the use of emoji exit tickets with a short reflection explaining their choice. Furthermore, open-ended surveys will be conducted in the middle and end of units to gauge the quality of learning and how students feel about their own performance. Finally, informal lesson observations, taking note in how students process information and engage with different activities. Observations over how teachers interact with lessons should also be made. Here are some examples of the evaluation documents. I've attached the rest at the end of the program summary I submitted with this PowerPoint. To get a better understanding of teacher-learner satisfactions, teachers should complete self-report skills during the middle and ending of the semester. Most statements will be about pacing and general design on the curriculum. End-of-the-year surveys for both students and teachers will be anonymous to ensure honest responses for feedback on the course. It will also include questions about the successes of the course along with the challenges faced by both students and teachers. It will also give teachers and students an opportunity to provide suggestions in how to improve the course. Again, here are some examples of what the documents look like for this section of the evaluation. Finally, 8th grade reading scores will be used to evaluate later achievement. Data should be collected from student class performance grades, 8th grade TELPUS scores, reading benchmark scores, and the beginning of the year reading screener to assess reading levels. Each of these tools will evaluate how effective the course was by analyzing how students retained and utilized information learned in the 7th grade reading course. Teachers could use this table to help analyze results side by side. That pretty much sums up my curriculum design and evaluation plan. Thank you again for viewing my presentation, and I look forward to seeing what you all came up with too.